Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
What's your salvation story? How did you come to faith? How did you move into this role where you seem and sound so passionate about not only missions, but unreached and unengaged tribes?
Well, I'd love to share that. I'll give you the brief version and the fast-forwarded version here. But one of the main turning points for me in life came before I knew anything was turning. I was a 4-year-old boy being raised by a single dad, along with my two brothers, who at the time would have been ages, my younger brother 3, my older brother 6. And we had been, Dad had been divorced for a couple of years at that point, raising the 3 of us on his own. There was a knock at our door one evening. We lived in a little town on the state line, Tennessee-Kentucky state line in the mountains. And a couple of men from Baptist church in town were out knocking on doors. It was church visitation night, and they made their way up to the little rental house we were living in and knocked on the door, invited my father to church. And Dad took them up on that invitation, and we started attending the little Baptist church there in our town. Found a church family that welcomed us in and loved us and really helped our family to heal. Looking back on it, helped raise us. And it was a few years later, there was another knock at our door, and this time it was our pastor. He had come at my father's invitation. My older brother had been asking questions about the gospel, and Brother Alan Herod came and sat in the green chair at the corner of our living room, shared the gospel with my older brother. My younger brother and I, we were sitting on the floor listening in, and Brother Alan got 3 for 1 that night as we gave our commitment to Christ and put our trust in Him. And the 3 of us were baptized together a few weeks later at the Little First Baptist Church in Jellicoe, Tennessee. Fast forwarding from there, sensed during my freshman year of college a call to ministry. I wasn't sure what that would mean or what form that would take. Any kind of public speaking was my greatest fear in life. So I was trying to figure out how do I answer a call to ministry without being in front of people and saying anything. But the Lord helped me work through that, and through my seminary training, wanted to get some experience in a local church, began pastoring a little church during seminary. I felt a strong sense of calling at that point, and spent 18 years as a local church pastor. A couple of things happened during that time that really captured my heart for global mission work. One was, in the very first church I pastored, our associational missionary dropped by one day and asked if we would like to be a part of a world missions conference where missionaries would come in like a revival type schedule. Every evening at the church, you would have a service, have a different missionary speaker every night. And so I said, sure, we'll do that. And listening to those missionaries come in and share, that was my first real exposure to missionaries. And my imagination was captured by their work and their calling, what God was doing around the world. Then some years later, had the opportunity to become a board member at the IMB. Certainly that was transforming to my life. We were talking about mission trips and getting young people out on mission trip. The very first mission trip that my wife, Michelle, and I took, I was a pastor, and this was some 20 years ago, worked in the slums outside of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And the Lord used that, again, just to deeply impact us, to change us. And all of this began to affect my ministry as a pastor. And I was invited, I guess it was in 2011, to lead the mission work of Kentucky Baptists. I've been very involved in that work in our state convention, and was invited to become the executive director. So that was a great outlet. In addition, I was teaching in the seminary classroom and taught some missions classes and used all my classes to kind of point in that direction. But the Mission Work State Convention was a great outlet for me to begin to grow in a sense of involvement and really towards this calling to be more a part of what God is doing among the nations. And then it was from that role that in 2018, I was invited to serve in this role with the International Mission Board. So that's kind of the way it tracked over the years, some of the different significant events that God used to mold and and shaped me to bring me into this role. It's an incredible privilege to serve Southern Baptists in this role. We have well over 40,000 churches that our mission statement at the IMB is we exist to serve Southern Baptists and carrying out the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations. So we want to mobilize churches towards the nations. And then, of course, to serve our missionaries. We have 3,635 missionaries serving around the world through the IMB, and they've got about 2,700 kids in tow. So we've got a large and strong mission force around the world, and we get to be that support system for them and help shore up that support for them. It's just an incredible privilege.
Gospel Privilege provides the keys you need to unlock your full potential as an effective witness of God's kingdom power. This resource will inspire change in you as you read testimony after testimony of people who use their gospel privilege to bring the kingdom message worldwide. As author David Joannis testifies, gospel privilege is the soul-saving, culture-shaping, world-changing message that's come into the world through the person of Jesus. It is an unearned spiritual advantage with eternal consequences meant for every human being. Buy the book on Amazon or visit gospelprivilege.com to download a free chapter today.
You know, I'm struck as you talk about your testimony there for a moment. You said your sofa or the chair you were sitting on was green, and you have these little moments in life that God uses, these divine intersections that is in full color. It's not a black and white or sepia toned memory whatsoever. It is technicolor, and it's a divine moment in time. And I think as you're talking about your testimony here, people will say, well, you know, he's been a pastor for 20 some years, you know, and he's been in ministry all his life. And what I'm kind of struck with is this reality that you're talking about ordinary run-of-the-mill folks who have a divine touch from God, and you remember the color green sofa and some other details of your story, and God uses it to kind of catapult or shake your life and move you in a different dimension. Is that what can happen with those people who might consider themselves ordinary or normal folk?
Absolutely, and I don't think I could be you could find a better example of that than me, just ordinary folk. My grandparents on my mother's side were school teachers. My grandparents on my father's side, my grandfather began working in the deep mines, the coal mines, as a 12-year-old boy. My grandmother worked in the shirt factory. My father worked for the telephone company. I started out climbing poles, worked for the telephone company for 45 years. So just, you know, blue collar, maybe upper lower class, lower middle class along the way. And yet, you know, thinking back on my story and the story of so many others that I know, the phrase that comes to my mind I often use is, the Lord finds us. The Lord finds us. The Lord found us. I don't know why he chose to find us in that little 2-bedroom, 1-bath rental house at 210 Province Street, a little washed up mining town. But the Lord, in his kindness, found us. And what a privilege, the greatest privilege obviously is knowing him and being secure in salvation for eternity because of his kindness. But then the Lord lets us be a part of what he's doing and finding lost people, men and women, boys and girls, all around the world.
That's
It's
right.
overwhelming.
That's the byline of this whole podcast. Know God's heart, join his mission. Once you kind of sense that pulsation, it is inevitable. It's very difficult anyway to not join. It's oftentimes inevitable that we jump on board. And I think that's what the whole conversation is about today, pointing people toward Jesus, being available to his calling and obedient. And that's when the excitement begins, man. Those faithful steps in trailing our Savior.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.